So, good evening and welcome to this evening's Solidarity session. Solidarity sessions are a series of online webinars that we're presenting. Uh, and our first, our this evening's webinar is mainly about updates on IPSC priority campaigns, including media management, BDS, OTB, Shannon. There's obviously a number of different ongoing campaigns, and we want to just give an update on those. So we started these solidarity sessions on 5 Mondays ago. So Monday, the 3rd of November, we had one specifically on the central bank. That's up on our YouTube channel now. That was Helen Mahoney and Sean Marmion. Then we had on November 10th, we had Iman Mohammed, a Palestinian photojournalist. On the 17th, we had Dr. John Reynolds talking about international law. Last week, we had Dr. Rebecca Heslin on Solidarity as Praxis, Psychology, Power, and the Struggle for Palestine. So tonight is the final one of these 5 sessions. We have Zoe Lawlor, our chair of IPSC, and Brian Éigeartaigh, our media officer at IPSC. And as I said, it'll be focusing on the campaigns that are active and the priority campaigns. And obviously, we hope this is going to be of lots of interest to activist groups, both within IPSC and in other groups that we collaborate with. The session this evening is we're using Zoom webinar. We're going to be there's going to be presentations for between approximately 40 minutes, followed by Q&A. The session is being recorded, but attendees' details are not shown on screen. We'll have time for live questions afterwards. When you look at your screen, you'll see 3 buttons at the bottom. The most important one from your point of view in terms of submitting questions is the Q&A button. So if you see that one there, if you can type in your questions there, and we'll come back to you with either verbal or text answers. And if you have any other questions at the end of the session or whatever, you can send them to education@ipsc.ie. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to hand over to Zoe Lawlor. Zoe, you're very welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming along this evening. As Tom said, my name is Zoe Lawlor. I'm the chairperson of the IPSC. So I'm going to talk about a lot of our main campaigns this evening, and obviously what a lot of the work that we do is around the BDS campaign, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions on Israel, and we work very closely with the BDS movement, the Boycott National Committee, which is the biggest Palestinian civil society movement calling for boycott of apartheid Israel. So we would work on the cultural, the sporting, the academic, and obviously the consumer boycott of Israel, and then do whatever work we can around divestment. And also, obviously, we call always on our government to sanction Israel for its crimes against Palestinians. So I'm going to start first with the cultural boycott. So I'm the cultural and sporting liaison for the IPSC. So a lot of our work is around the cultural boycott of Israel. And it takes different forms. So, for example, in Ireland, we have an Irish Artist Pledge to boycott Israel, which is now at 2,395 signatories. So, what I would do is contact artists when I have time and ask them to sign the pledge, or when we share the pledge, obviously, sometimes artists see it and they sign up. And it's something that we would ask our members and our branches to do as well. And anyone who's watching, if you know any artists, you could ask them to sign our artist pledge. It's a very important show of solidarity with Palestinians and a rejection of Israeli apartheid. And it also strengthens the cultural boycott work that we do in Ireland. So, for example, if an Irish artist was invited to perform in Israel, and this is rare, but it does happen, I would contact them on behalf of IPSC and ask them not to perform and not to cross the Palestinian picket line. If they didn't do that or wouldn't engage, then we would have a public campaign. But having this, thousands of their peers signed up to this pledge to boycott Israel certainly gives a lot of strength and weight to those demands for people not to cross the Palestinian picket line. Um, when we were contacting the artists performing in the Eurovision for Ireland in 2019 when it was in Israel, and for the last 2 years, again, we would use this leverage of having all these artists who've signed our pledge. And also, it gives us access to some of these artists who might want to do work on some of our campaigns. So, again, I would ask if you do know any artists who haven't signed up, you can see the pledge there on ipsc.ie/pledge. You can ask them to sign. Um, as you may know, obviously the Eurovision has been a very big campaign. In 2019, it was in Israel, so there was a call for a boycott of it because it was on there. And then for the past 2 years, because Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians, there is a call for Israel to be expelled by the European Broadcasting Union, and failing that, for our broadcasters, national broadcasters, not to participate, and also for artists not to participate. We had a very strong campaign around this last year and this year, especially last year, because I think because it was the first year of the genocide, people really couldn't accept that, a state committing genocide would be able to culture wash its crimes in the Eurovision and behave as if it's a normal state. So we had a lot of buy-in from the public, from artists and cultural workers, and also from people working in RTE and and journalists. So what we would do is on all years actually we've written to the Director General of RTE and asked them not to participate in Eurovision. They generally, don't engage very much, but they did engage a couple of times to the extent that they recognized in 2019 that it was a moral issue and that they wouldn't sanction any employees who refused to participate. And then we would have an email campaign asking our supporters to write to RTE to demand that they boycott it. And then we've had actions and events at RTE. And then this year, because of the really immense work done in the campaign and also by a lot of RTE staff and the Dublin Broadcasting branch of the NUJ, RTE did say that they will not participate in Eurovision this year if Israel is present. So this is like a really big win and a very welcome announcement from RTE. And as we said at the time, it's well overdue. It shouldn't have taken this long. However, it is very welcome. RTE had said that their participation in the next year's Eurovision would be unconscionable because of Israel committing genocide. But obviously, our argument is that it was unconscionable in 2019, 2024, and this year. But it is, as I said, a really big win and a testimony to all the people who were involved in the campaign. We're part of a European coalition that works on the boycott of the Eurovision. And I know that, to some people, Eurovision might seem like trivial, it's a song contest. But really, it has huge cultural significance in Israel. And also, it's probably the campaign that's most winnable in general for us to get Israel expelled by a big organization such as the EBU. And certainly getting all the broadcasters that have so far to pull out and to hopefully stick by that decision is really a big success. So the EBU General Assembly is on this week on the 4th and 5th of December, and Spain has reaffirmed that they will hold by their decision not to participate if Israel does. And we really strongly hope and believe that RTE will also do the same. So we had a protest there recently, not a protest, an event to say, keep boycotting, please keep up the momentum and don't waver because, people often use the ceasefire to hide behind. So that campaign is ongoing, as I said, on a European level because other countries are trying to get their broadcasters to do the same. So we would also have, a lot of, I suppose, cultural cachet in Ireland with the caliber of our artists and the stands that they've taken. Sally Rooney, very notably, again, they're talking about maybe not publishing her books in Britain because of support for Palestine action. We've seen what happened with Kneecap being prosecuted in the courts in England. Um, and really, our artists have been something to be very proud of in the stance that they've taken against this genocide. So the cultural boycott aspect of our work is very, very important. And I'll talk very briefly shortly about apartheid-free zones. But if you know any cultural centres, if we could get them to become apartheid-free zones, that is also part of the ongoing cultural boycott. As well as this kind of work, for example, if there was an Israeli sponsored event or film on in Ireland, we would work with the venue or the people putting it on to get that funding or sponsorship removed. And just to note, as always, the boycott is not targeted at identity, it's targeted at complicity. So people are not boycottable simply because they're Israeli artists, but they are boycottable on various criteria. And sometimes, it's not 100% clear. There's a bit of nuance in it. So we would consult with our partners in the BNC if there's something that we're not sure about. So if there is something that you are aware of that's coming up and you don't really know how to deal with it, you can contact me at culturalboycott@ipsc.ie. Also, we work on the sporting boycott of Israel. So for the second year in a row, Ireland was drawn with Israel in the Eurobasket qualifiers, and would have had a big campaign calling on Basketball Ireland not to play against Israel. I have written to Basketball Ireland, the CEO, and all the management committee both occasions, they've never responded. That's very common with sporting federations. They don't generally engage at all. We had an email action for the most recent match, which was like a week ago, which hundreds of people emailed Basketball Ireland. So that's a strong representation of people not wanting the games to go ahead. Unfortunately, the game did go ahead. And because of the situation with the genocide, Basketball Ireland won't play in Israel. So the home match in Ireland is also going to be won't be in Ireland, will be in a neutral venue, which is unfortunate because if it was here, obviously we don't want it to go ahead at all. But if it was here, we could have protests outside. It's on St. Patrick's Day, which you couldn't really make up at all. And as part of the sporting boycott and comes into the consumer boycott, we also participate in the Reebok campaign, Boycott Reebok, because they sponsor the Israeli football team, football association, and we participated in the Boycott Reebok Day of Action a couple of weeks ago. So just to say about the cultural and sporting boycotts. So you often don't reach your ultimate goal, which is for, the Eurovision not to go ahead in Israel, or for all the broadcasters to pull out, or for the Irish team not to play Israel. However, especially the Eurovision campaign and the cultural boycott gets huge media coverage. Basketball Ireland, the basketball match also got huge media coverage. So what it does is it mainstreams the boycott and it mainstreams the facts of Israel being an apartheid state that should not be normalized and that is should be boycotted, and that there's a huge support for this boycott in Ireland and around the world. So, with all our campaigns, don't ever get downhearted because we don't reach the ultimate goal, because it's the work along the way and it's the awareness raising and it's the mainstreaming of the notion of Israel as an apartheid state, and that the Palestinian boycott call is now in the mainstream. Um, Yes, we don't do a huge amount of work on the academic boycott, but obviously we support it. And there is Academics for Palestine who do the main body of the work, and then there's all the brilliant student groups in most of the universities around the country. And then this week we had the great news that Alwyn Fiore and Margot Harkin and Kerry Harper had turned down honorary doctorates at the University of Galway because of its links with Technion. So again, that's a mainstreaming of the academic boycott, which is really great to see. Um, when we talk about boycotts, and the BDS movement are very strong and clear on this, they want people to be involved in targeted rather than untargeted boycotts. So there are, huge lists going around of multiple companies. But what they want is people to focus on specific targets that they have chosen for maximum complicity. And small, as they say, small number of companies or products for maximum impact. So it's here, and if you look at the BDS movement website, they give their priority targets, then they have pressure targets, and then there are organic boycotts that have grown up, from the ground up during the genocide that the BDS movement supports. But obviously, they want people to focus on the priority targets, and there has been huge success in the boycott in the last few years, and also in divestment campaigns. So that's where a lot of our work is. If you look there, you can see Reebok, as I mentioned. Puma had been the sponsors of the Israeli FA, and then they dropped that contract after years of campaigning. Unfortunately, now Reebok have taken it up, so that's where the work is. They also talk about why, they give a lot of information on why they target specific companies like Intel, like Chevron. And they say, yes, the consumer boycott is very important, but they want these big corporations targeted very much as well. Okay, so we would have done like an awareness raising campaign for Black Friday and Cyber Monday on brands that are complicit in Israel's genocide. As you can see there from the slides, it's like most tech companies, and then you've SodaStream, Reebok, Microsoft, and Xbox. All of the information on this is on the BDS movement website. So I'm going to speak very briefly about apartheid-free zones. So this is a global initiative, and then this is the apartheid-free zones in Ireland. So this is where companies or businesses or like sports clubs or zines or cultural spaces can sign up to become an apartheid-free zone in Ireland. If you look at the apartheidfree.ie website, you'll see now we've an interactive map which shows who has signed up where around the country. And it's great to see this momentum. And we really want to get more and more companies or businesses and spaces signed up to become apartheid-free zones, so that we have this real strength that in Ireland, all these people, all these businesses, all these spaces are standing with the Palestinians and standing for boycott and against Israeli apartheid. Now, I only have a couple of minutes left. Um, I know you had the session on the central bank and the updates from Helen and Sean, so I'm not going to go into that, but just to say that our next protest at the central bank is on Tuesday, the 9th of December at 12:30 p.m. So we wanted to talk a small bit about Shannon, because obviously with the US military being a full and active partner in Israel's genocide, the mobilizations at Shannon have become more frequent, national mobilizations from us. Our last one was in August, as we are finding out more and more from the great work of the journalists at the Ditch. The government is admitting that it's allowing weapons through Ireland to Israel, that they have authorized US warplanes to stop over on their way to IOF bases in Israel. places where they fly their F-35 jets from. There is a monthly demonstration at Shannon every month by Shannon Watch, and then other groups have been doing every Sunday morning as well. And there has been a lot of direct action at the airport, including just 2 weeks ago. And a lot of, unfortunately, great activists are in court, are facing court cases. Incredibly, our state won't inspect the US military planes, but is very happy to prosecute peace activists and to drag them through the courts. So Shannon is definitely something that we should be pushing and pushing our politicians on, because for over 20 years, this shameful complicity has been going on with the US military use of Shannon Airport. We will be organising more national demonstrations there. And then there's also Aldergrove Airport in the north. So unfortunately, across the island of Ireland, the US military is using our airports to be a partner in genocide and in war crimes. Um, so I'll be stopping in a second, but just one thing to say to everyone, and I'm sure people from our branches are here, and people have been doing just immense work for 2 years. It's incredible, over 2 years. And obviously before that, but the energy in the last 2 years has just been amazing to see, very heartening in the most dark times. We can't get downhearted. Omar Barghouti told us that as Ireland, we must keep up the hope. And if Palestinians can keep going, then we absolutely have to. So keep coming out for Palestine, talking about Palestine, keep pushing our elected representatives to act because they shamefully haven't. Keep boycotting, and we keep going until freedom, justice, and equality for Palestine. So thank you very much for listening, and I will hand you over now to Brian.
Hi, Brian. I think you might be on mute. Could you just unmute your microphone, maybe?
Trade in services is considerably more complex than is the case with goods, and there remains considerable legal uncertainty as to whether the inclusion of services is permissible under EU law. Legal clarity is needed on this point, and this is something that I, as Minister, want to receive. I made it very clear, though, at the very outset, when being appointed to this role, that I intend to fulfil our commitment in the programme for government.
That was our new Foreign Affairs Minister, Helen McEntee, on the Occupied Territories Bill, which is, to my mind, the most important campaign. Delayed since 2018, Senator Francis Black's bill passed both houses of the Oireachtas with the support of human rights organisations and legal experts and a former Attorney General, Michael McDowell. Turochara's website, Turochara's webpage updated to this year on the subject is very strong, so any question that you have is answered there. The government, having redrafted the bill after the election, want to exclude services from the scope of the bill. They're seeking the Attorney General's advice on the matter again, having previously sought the same Attorney General's advice, and Roderick O'Gorman, TD, tells us that he saw the previous 23 pages of advice, and it did not once mention any need to distinguish between goods and services. Aside from that, the government figures are intermittently hinting and leaking other rationales for dropping the bill, such as anti-boycott laws in the US, such as the vengeful Trump, such as foreign direct investment, And when Helen McEntee appears on a program such as The Week in Politics or Prime Time, she will be dropping hints to the people out there who see themselves as the supposed adults in the room that, look, this occupied territories bill, it's going nowhere. That's the game plan. They're hard to avoid the conclusion that they want to drop this. They're kicking the can down the road until the media cycle has moved on. And then hopefully, from their point of view, not enough voters will care about it anymore to make an impact. That's the plan. The Occupied Territories Bill remains the pressure point, though. It really is the thing that the government are on the ropes about. So any efforts that you can put into pushing the Occupied Territories Bill into making an impact on that one is time well spent. On to media engagement. So taking this crucial issue as a case in point, McEntee tells Doyle legal clarity is needed and that the government is awaiting Attorney General's advice. That's where we're up to, basically. So one of the strongest things that a person can do out there is to write into the papers. And a number of tips that I have for you there would be a maximum word count of 285 words. Now, they sometimes do publish letters with 320 words or 370 words, but generally, if someone shows me a letter that was 370 words and they didn't publish it, I kind of think, well, that's why, because you're giving the editor more work to do and they have to then cut down your letter or not publish it at all. So that generally they don't publish anything more than 285 words. Choose one point to focus on. So lots of times you're seeing something in the papers and you think where to begin. Well, you have to choose one thing, focus on that. If you have time, you could write another letter or get one of your friends to write another letter about another point. There's an unwritten rule that a letter should contain a new insight for readers. The idea is that if it doesn't contain a new insight for readers, something to make readers think or say, I hadn't thought of that, then why would you bother reading it over your breakfast? That's kind of the rationale. And of course, finish strong with a demand or a conclusion. A few little tricks that work very well. The phrase difficult to avoid the conclusion that, instead of just saying that something is the case or the government is kicking the can down the road, if you say it's difficult to avoid the conclusion that, or it's hard to avoid the suspicion that, or whatever, then you can proceed to say whatever you like, and the papers are much more likely to publish it. Again, the phrase, could it be that the government are hoping that the media cycle has moved on and voters have forgotten? You got the idea. So here's an example. Again, on that case in point. Sir, so you open up, you present the issue, responding to demands that services should be included alongside goods in the scope of the OTB. Helen McEntee said, legal clarity is needed on this point. Then you confront that claim with the facts. In fact, last week's Dáil debate showed legal clarity has already been provided. As a minister in the previous government, Roderick O'Gorman TD received the advice. He declared in 23 pages there was not one reference to a need to make a distinction between goods and services. So here is where you give your analysis, but you have to put it in the way that the paper are likely to publish it. You can still say anything you like as long as you address it the right way. It's difficult to avoid the suspicion that Paul Murphy was right when he said this is the most blatant, retroactive getting of advice to suit a political position. This is simply an attempt to find legal cover for the political retreat that the government wants to engage in. And you can throw in this point as well, perhaps. I know I said focus on one point, but if it flows, then include another one within your 285 words. Minister McEntee's warning that many states have anti-boycott legislation. I do not think we should ignore that. That's a strong hint that this is a case of the government's political reluctance masquerading as legal misgivings. And then you finish strong with an observation, a demand, whatever. Inclusion of services alongside goods is a legal and moral necessity mandated by international law and long demanded by the Irish electorate. And that's how it works. So that's basically the analysis that I would offer on the Occupied Territories Bill. And here is a blueprint of how to get the papers to acknowledge that that's the case and to put further pressure on our government. So who to send it to? The Irish Times, you have letters at irishtimes.com. There's the Independent, independent.letters@independent.ie for the Examiner and for the Sunday Independent, and then send that as 4 different emails, not CC'd in the same one, obviously. And where to get that information that you're relying on, the information that you're leveraging. So if you're talking about what's happening in Palestine, there's a number of very good organizations out there. B'Tselem, for instance, if you can quote them in a report, or if you can quote a UN report, that will give good, strong leverage to what you're saying. If you're looking at what was said in the Dáil debate, you can look up Oireachtas.ie, and it has the entire script. So if they were discussing the Occupied Territories Bill last week, or if they were discussing the central bank funding the Israeli war machine, you can look down through that, see the weak arguments that the government were giving, Pascal Donoghue, Helen McEntee, or whoever, and you can also see the points that Richard Boyd Barrett and Sinead Gibney and Paul Murphy were making, you know? So it's all there, Oireachtas.ie, and you can also look at the videos. Now, the videos obviously are very long, but you can find the piece that you're looking for. Screenpal.com is a very useful resource. It allows you to, basically, you set it going, you draw a little rectangle around the part of your screen that you want to record, and you record that, download it, and then perhaps get it onto social media. So that's the tool that I use to get the little video that I started off this presentation with. Screenpal.com, it's a good one. And then RTE's coverage. I don't need to tell anyone who's here on a Monday evening making themselves available for this solidarity session, or anyone who's freezing their fingers off on a winter's night on a bridge, or anyone who's handing out leaflets or going to a demo on a Saturday. I don't need to tell you what's wrong with RTE's coverage or the coverage of mainstream media. Here we have RTE, our national broadcaster, talking about the Israeli state murdering children as testing the ceasefire. Testing the ceasefire. Now, here's the question: what to do about it? There's 2 ways to approach this. You have formal complaints, and I want to be clear about this. Just because we absolutely despise RTE's framing of the genocide, it doesn't follow that we're going to score success with a formal complaint. The details are as follows. RTE is bound by the Online Safety and Media Regulation Act 2022. Treatment of current affairs, including matters of public controversy, is fair to all interests concerned, and the matter broadcast or made available is presented in an objective and impartial manner. That's the key: objective and impartial manner, and without any expression of the broadcaster's or provider's own views. So under that, obviously, I deplore it when I see RTE are platforming Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari once again, and not interviewing Diana Booty, who would be a very strong voice if they were to. But it doesn't follow that I'm going to score a formal complaint on that particular basis, but certainly give it a go. Now, on RTE's own website, it gives information on that, a lot of information on how to proceed under that act to make a formal complaint. An example here of one that I did about, it was Katie Hannon's program, her program on the telly, and basically in the introduction, she said, Katie Hannon's opening statement, which unambiguously stated that the occupied territories are in Israel, was neither objective nor impartial, not in Israel. Far from being presented in an objective manner, the presenter's statement was a deviation from international law articulated in countless instances over, etc., etc. So the response, you get an immediate response from RTE saying that they've received your complaint, but then they will go all out with a very snotty email, which covers their own back, defends their own position, and rejects what you're saying. So what it proceeds to say, you know, at no point did the presenter, in the full context of the transmission, take a partial view. She remained fair, objective, and impartial throughout. Actually, she didn't, but that's... when it came to bespoke audience members, difficult questions were posed both the Palestinian man and Israeli man. Now, by sending this in, you are putting them under a little bit of pressure. But all I'm saying here is that is not all about formal complaints because sometimes they will be able to shrug these off. There's also the matter of getting onto them. And so their contact details are right there. With regard to Radio 1, you can text in on 51552. But what's much more powerful is if you get on the phone to them and frankly make them sorry that they are normalizing a genocide, that they're providing cover to the Israeli state. Um, it's a fact that we've found in our discussions with editors and journalists and so forth that some of the papers and RT themselves are in dread of certain very vocal pro-Israeli people phoning in and chewing their ear off. And my advice would be, let's get some people doing the same. So if you are in a position, sure, text in to complain about coverage, but also if you can phone them and really make your feelings known in that case, they're likely to remember that, and hopefully that would be reflected in um, their coverage going forwards. So that's a number of ways that you can tackle the media bias. I look forward to some questions on it and having more discussions about it. But for the moment, I have to say thank you very, very much for being here. And, let's keep the pressure going.
Okay, thank you, Brian, and thank you, Zoe. That was really a great summary of the campaigns that are going on at the moment. I also forgot to mention Matthew Thornton from IPSC is on our team as well tonight, and Matthew is just also looking at some questions that have come up. So we have a number of questions, and we encourage you to put in your questions. We have a question. I'll just start off with a few of them. Forgive my pronunciation if I get this wrong. Venice Biennale, we call Irish artists and curators participating to join ANGE, Artists Not Genocide Alliance, who are calling for Israel to be banned from the Visual Arts Biennale. Zoe, are you familiar with that one?
With the Venice Biennale.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Good. And I presume you support that one.
Yeah, I look at the call. Thanks.
Okay, great. Um, has anyone reached out to First Music Contact or Ireland Music Week? Another one for you, Zoe.
Who is that?
That's a question from Kaylin Walsh.
No,
And
I mean, First
so
Music
Kaylin
Contact.
has
I'm
asked, has
Googling it.
anyone reached out to First Music Contact or Ireland Music Week?
Would it be in terms of them being an apartheid-free zone?
I guess, or
Yeah.
in terms of uh, maybe their
That question came in during the artist pledge section, so
Yeah, but I'm just as far as I can see, it's a collaborator with the artist, but I could contact them about the artist pledge if they could share with their artists. So thank you for that. I wasn't aware of
okay,
them.
yeah. Yeah. So just to say, I mean, Zoe kind of summarized some of the work she's doing on the Artist Pledge, and that has been ongoing for years now, Zoe. I mean, starting with the first artist, and now way up over that number you mentioned, 2000.
2,395.
Yeah, way back.
And I've
And I know festivals around the country as well, where an Israeli would be uh, participating and a pro-Zionist Israeli would be participating that Zoe gets onto the festivals involved and stuff like that, and
if they
and
meet the
and and
boycott
has been very
criteria,
effective on that. Yeah,
just to be clear, if they meet the boycott criteria, not just because they're Israeli.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Um, another point from Caelan Walsh. Also, the alcohol companies, Guinness, Jameson, have internal cultural campaigns. Could be a good way to get in touch with artists on the Rolodex.
Great. Is that Cayman?
Caelan Walsh.
Oh, Kaylin. Okay, sorry. I thought it was someone I knew from Limerick. That's great information. Thank you very much. I will
Okay.
definitely look into those.
And
It's great to have those
yep.
contacts because, as I said, I contact artists, and it's very easy to get contact details for bands, but it's almost impossible to get contact details for actors and writers, and you have to go through agents, and there's no way they're passing on that request to sign the boycott of Israel to their people, their clients. Yeah.
Okay. Question there from Paul Fitzgerald. What do you think of the GA's absolute silence on the genocide, given their huge platform in Ireland?
I think that the Alliance campaign is going well, and a lot of a lot of counties boards have brought motions, and the GAA is going to debate um, uh, Alliance being their sponsor. I think that's coming up soon, or they're looking into it on ethical grounds. Um, I think a lot of institutions in Ireland haven't spoken out. I think that's terrible. I think everyone should be speaking out about the genocide and everything that's going on. So, I know you always get this argument, oh, sports and politics are not connected, and art and politics are not connected, as if we all operate in these silos, as opposed to being rounded human beings that have all these different aspects in our lives. So, yeah, absolutely would hope that. I mean, even the church, the Catholic Church, not that I would have very high expectations of them on anything, but that they took the very long time to say even the most mild thing about, oh, maybe genocide is bad. Yeah. So, yeah,
Yeah.
all these institutions need to be pushed more.
Yeah, exactly, and especially the churches, the institutions have massive wealth and massive pension funds, or massive investment funds, uh, and questions arise. I think relevant questions pertain to where those investments are being invested in, and are there any links? So the divestment campaign, obviously the BDS campaign covers boycotts, divestment, and sanctions, and the divestment area is a massive area, I think, which anyone with an interest in that area should, you know, investigate further. And if you have a specific knowledge or whatever, uh, feel free to contact your local IPSC branch and push. Like different people, lots of people have expertise in these areas, and maybe could be very much more effective if they link up with other groups. Brian, a question for you, and I think you've probably answered it already. Are there volunteers monitoring media on a daily basis? You can see that question there. Could you take that question? Because obviously Brian has doing massive work on this.
There certainly are, absolutely. But having said that, we're just ordinary people with 24 hours in a day like anyone else. So getting a bit of stuff done outside of work or whatever. And so yeah, basically, if any people should, if they take an interest in all of that, keep an eye on the papers. It's the three national newspapers. Also keep an eye on the Twitter profiles of Simon Harris, Helen McEntee, and so forth. Look out for government statements. Keep an eye on RTE. Absolutely, keep an eye on all of those. So we're monitoring it with a view to responding in real time. We're not monitoring it with a view to writing a report and releasing that to the public. That would be a whole different level of, we're doing this in real time,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just to note on that, there are academics now in UL who are doing a study at the moment, doing research on Irish media, print media, response to the genocide, similar to great work that's been done in England. So that will come, from people who have time and money, funding to do this research. And just to note that we also would release press releases regularly. We do a lot of media around the national demos. I did huge amounts of media around Eurovision because they love talking about Eurovision. And with the sporting boycott, there was a lot, and actually News Talk and Off the Ball were very good. They gave myself and Trevor Hogan and Rebecca O'Keefe from Irish Sport for Palestine a full show to talk about the sporting boycott. So there is more space opening up, although it is a wall that we have to, very much push against. Yeah.
Yeah, there's two related ones there from Margaret Holland. Brian, I've thought about a campaign to demand audio, visual media, RT, News Talk, etc. have the protocol that they begin every interview with an Israeli spokesman by asking, "Do you accept that Israel is committing genocide? And do you accept that Israel is illegally occupying the West Bank?" Whereas normally they start off, "Do you condemn October 7th, etc." Any comments on that?
Well, absolutely, they should be doing that. But like the likelihood of forcing that to actually happen is another thing. But of course, like I mean, you take, for instance, Alan Shatter as a political commentator, he has stated in writing the settlements are not the barrier to peace in all of this. He has never denounced he has never condemned the settlements. He had never accepted the illegality of the settlements. So fundamentally, yeah, I think that they should be confronted much more so. I mean, it's many times that RTE have interviewed someone like Daniel Hagari or whoever and have not really confronted them with all of this, for sure. But it's sometimes it's almost wood for the trees stuff. Their RTE's willingness to portray stuff in Israeli terms, even the concept of there being a ceasefire at the moment, it's an entirely one-sided ceasefire. How can that be a ceasefire? You know?
Okay. Lots of thank yous there for your presentations. Um, let's see. Uh, okay. The comment there from Paul Fitzgerald, the Irish Examiner, has no mention of Saturday's Palestinian march in today's issue. Why is our media so complicit in this Holocaust?
Oh, indeed. I mean, we do send a press release out, like Zoe said. So we have press releases going out for big demos, obviously, but every smaller demo we do as well. We'd send press releases out and things, breaking news like the Knesset voting for a law to execute Palestinian prisoners. That was recent, and we'd send a press release out about that as well. And often the media don't cover these things. This is a fact that they don't.
Yeah.
Frankly, like very often the media don't welcome the idea of a solidarity movement commenting on this, and they don't welcome comment from us. Lots of times they'd be more eager to print a letter from an average Joe, for want of a better term.
Okay. Um, It's a question there in terms of local newspapers, Brian. Maeve Van Higgins says that a 500 to 700 word opinion piece for a local newspaper is an extremely effective way to reach your community and local politicians. Most editors will be happy to get a clear, well-written piece with a local slant. I would focus there rather than, okay, I think there's obviously a place for both local
Okay.
and national, right?
Oh yeah, it's not one or other, but if people are in a position to do that, that's absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. Matthew, is there any specific question you're kind of picking up on there?
There's one here about apartheid-free zones. With regard to apartheid-free zones, are there resources available for shopkeepers who wish to stock apartheid-free items so they can be more easily find suppliers at different price points? Small business in my town who wants to switch their supplier dates but can't afford some brands which are apartheid-free.
Yeah, I mean the apartheidfree.ie our website has a list of FAQs and a lot of resources there. I don't think we have the capacity to be, specifically able to say you can source these particular goods, but we can have a look. We do send for every business or space that signs up, we do send then a welcome pack that has resources in it. But I don't know specifically if we would have the know-how to know how would we source, cheaper, ethically dates or whatever, but we can look into it for sure.
Okay. There's a question there from Miriam. I understand Alliance. Gone again. I understand Alliance, the insurer used by many religious people and probably religious organizations. I had heard that a couple of priests trying to pressure Dublin Diocese to stop using Alliance. Hopefully that is the case. And as Zoe said, we would welcome people from the religious community to pressure their own organizations in this regard. I mean, as Zoe said, a number of prominent GA ex-players and ex-players have been running a very intensive campaign trying to get the GAA to stop using Allianz, and maybe it has died down a little bit now, or it seems to, because there's no big high profile games and stuff like that at the moment, or not many. But basically, I think that campaign will continue, and I think it's a campaign which I mean, there's an awful lot of grassroots support for Palestine within the GAA. So I think that's a campaign. If you are involved with the GAA in any way, please, with your local clubs and stuff, please make sure that you join that campaign. That's a very active and relevant campaign. It would be fantastic to see Allianz kicked out of the sponsorship of the GAA for the coming year.
And also get your GAA club to sign up as an apartheid-free zone, your local sporting
Exactly.
club. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Any other anyone else there? There's lots of questions coming in. There's one there from Dirbit, Rashid Khalidi, who is a very prominent Palestinian, speaking at the University of Cairo, put the point that the vast majority of the population doesn't access traditional media. Examples of not knowing what CNN or Reuters is. How are young people being influenced or misled? So I suppose, Brian, you may have a comment on that. Obviously, the influence of traditional media is who are not good at portraying the Palestinian cause is being countered on the other side by social media. So, would you have a comment on that, Brian, in terms of the media, the changes in media, and how young people may be more influenced more effectively?
Oh, well, I mean, it's a fact that the print and mainstream media have largely disgraced themselves. Having said that, people are even still able to read between the lines a little bit and say, "Good God, what kind of framing is RTE using?" and so forth. But yeah, social media is much more prevalent these days, and it's a reason why organizations such as ours should use social media as much as possible. Get our analysis out there in terms of Instagram Reels and so forth. So yeah, very important.
Yep. Someone commented that they just changed their car insurance away from Allianz, so well done on that. And yes, something we should all do if we are review our payments to any organizations who may be on the BDS list, and try and change that into the future. Um, okay, back to you, Matthew. Anything else there that you picking up? I mean, we're getting lots of questions, and we thank you for those. We're kind of so lots of questions is good, and we'll try to get around to as many as possible.
I'd like to answer a question from Olive, if I may, which was
Yeah, sure.
asking about whether letters and so forth should be responding to a particular article in a paper. They're much more likely to be published if they are. So you're much more likely to get something published in the Irish Times if you're doing it further to a particular article and citing that particular article in. So let's say that Helen McEntee made some statement or something. You see that in the Irish Times. You write a draft for the Irish Times. In today's report, Helen McEntee said, and you send that to them. You look at the Independent as well. Did they carry that story as well? And you tailor your letter in response to those. And then you check the Examiner. Did that happen? Did they do it? And you do the same. But also then, if you're just responding to a government statement and you're citing either government Twitter or a government press release, then you can send it to all three. So absolutely, it's a great question. They're much more likely to publish something in response to something that they've done.
Yeah. Someone makes a statement there. There was a disgusting runaround given to a youth team, obviously from Palestine, visiting Ireland in the GAA, coming to play, GAA, and obviously that visit was cancelled, which was a disgrace. I absolutely agree with that. Question there from Rachel. In terms of US anti-boycott laws, is there an argument to be made when writing a letter into the papers that this is undemocratic in terms of government prioritizing foreign interests over the actual mandate, or a version of this that may be more legally sound? Any comment on that,
Absolutely.
Brian?
Yeah, it's a very strong argument that it is utterly undemocratic to think that our what happens in Ireland in terms of legislation should be dictated by um, laws emanating from the US. It's appalling, yeah. So like you could contrast that with government figures saying that Ireland has to retain its independence in some other way, retain its sovereignty in the context of Vladimir Putin and so on. You can contrast those two things one against the other, you know. But absolutely, yeah, fundamentally it's a brilliant point.
Yeah. Kieran just asked, what's the optimal number of words again to respond to the national newspapers?
285. It's
285.
very, very
Okay.
important thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A comment there from Joseph. Has anyone ever noticed that the Brendan O'Connor show on RT1 at 11 a.m. on Sunday mornings nearly always has a biased panel when discussing Israel-Palestine? Brian?
Yeah, very much so. It,
And
no, not many particular examples would come back to me now, but yeah, very much so. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
just like don't expect anything from these shows. They're, it's the Brendan O'Connor show. They're terrible on housing. They're terrible on Palestine. They're terrible on everything. I hate listening to it, but that's just to raise my own blood pressure. So uh,
This is
Yeah.
it, exactly. Center right.
we do what we can within a very bad media, mainstream media landscape.
Yeah. Question there from Margaret. So how do we measure success? For example, is consciousness or awareness raising from media campaigns translates into anything concrete, such as large numbers of protests, etc.? Do we have any measurable criteria? Brian?
I
There,
mean, oh, sorry, Brian, can I take that for a
you,
sec?
by all means, sorry, I
I
insist.
I don't know how you measure it in concrete terms in the sense of it depends on what your goal is. So if you look at that for over 2 years all around the country, people have sustained weekly to monthly vigils, marches, events. That is a success, and that's generated by what's happening and also by the momentum of itself, and then all the work that all the activists are doing around it. If you had a campaign like Eurovision, like I said, the success is often not in the total end goal, but it's in how much coverage, how much discussion of it. And we saw with Eurovision that we could measure that, in fact, that the viewing figures in Ireland had, really dropped for it, and loads of venues, especially LGBT venues, had not shown Eurovision, and also lots of places had done alternative Eurovision nights, apartheid-free Eurovision nights. So sometimes you can measure it, sometimes it's concrete, and sometimes it's more about the journey to the goal. We might not get to the goal, but a lot of the work that's done along the way is we can see now. I don't know if it translates into more people. Like we wouldn't have more people at the Limerick demo because we had the Eurovision campaign or something, but people are out. And I definitely I said this last year, and I'm saying it a year later, that I'm amazed at how much people have sustained the energy and the commitment and the seriousness that they take this whole thing with, and that despite it being so long, that it hasn't faded. So I guess I mean, that's definitely very successful. I don't know how concrete the measurements are.
Yeah, there's a couple of related questions there to BDS. Is there a source that lists the criteria for identifying a target for boycott? Well, the best source which we align with is the BDS website, as Zoe said earlier on. There's a lot of material on there. Now, there's also a related question on there. Why does Allianz appear, or why doesn't Allianz appear on the BDS list, or have I missed it? Obviously, Allianz is well, it obviously uh, could possibly, because it's a global company. I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure whether it's on the global list at the moment, the BDS list. It may well be. Obviously, the specific Allianz campaign in Ireland is focusing. From the GAA is focusing on Allianz support for the GAA, so our matches and stuff like that. So sometimes they sometimes it may be on there, and or the list may change depending on. But the BDS team, the global, Omar Barghouti led team. I mean, they're very clued in on the campaigns. They're very strategic. They're very like they know what they're doing, and I think it's the best kind of advice that we give is to follow their advice. And any other comments on that?
Absolutely. So, same, like they have criterion on the website there, the level of complicity, likelihood of success, media exposure, and so forth.
Yeah.
So ones that we would focus on very strongly would be Reebok, HP, and the fruit and veg industry, and also as specific to Ireland is Teva.
Yeah, and if you look at the BDS movement website, so they have financial institutions and Allianz is listed there. But as I said, they have priority targets, pressure targets, and
Got it.
organic targets. So, you know, like the, the list of financial institutions financing military companies that are arming Israel is very long. So they're not going to be able to run, a campaign on each one. And that's what we said earlier about strategic and targeted. But that doesn't mean that if there's a local campaign that we can get traction with, such as the GAA being sponsored by Allianz, that would be something that would be like for us in Ireland to do. Same as with Cement Roadstone. We had that campaign, it was local to Ireland. Because CRH were supplying the cement for the apartheid wall. So sometimes there are campaigns that might be local and might not be yet a part of the big global movement. That doesn't mean that we don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. One there for you, Brian, regarding social media posts. Is there any recommendation on how many articles we should post per week to beat the algorithms?
I do not know, and I'm not
Or
going to.
Zoe?
I don't know, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. Sorry about that. I don't know about. I
If I
don't
knew
know
how to
about
beat
algorithms.
the algorithm, I'd be like sitting on an island somewhere, rolling in cash from people who want to beat the
Sure.
algorithm. No, I don't know how to do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
there's
do
probably
have.
advice on advice online on how to do that,
Yeah.
but
You
sometimes
can see like
these algorithms change, right? So they're not
yeah.
exact. These algorithms are not exactly pro-Palestine, right? So
No, you can also see how our engagement on our social media, is very much limited, more and more, so
yeah,
I guess
exactly.
keep
And
clicking the
some
right stuff.
Yeah. And some social media accounts, pro-Palestine accounts, just disappear overnight. Even some ones with large number of followers, and I wonder why that is. Yeah. There's a question there. Do you feel the grassroots support waning at all, given the so-called ceasefire? The misinformation, read the genocide bonds. The problem has moved to Luxembourg, and the expectation that government was going to do something about the OTB. So there's a couple of just on those trends. Zoe?
Well, like I said, definitely the momentum of the activists and the branches is still there, and very impressive. But definitely there is a drop off because we know there is no ceasefire, but it isn't being reported. The daily killings or the starvation and the blocking of aid. So it is very much off the media unless you're really looking for it. So I would think that has diminished, certainly just some of the engagement we're getting, like as regards phone calls or, people signing up and that. But also I think after, this length of time, you're going to reach a point where not that many more new people are going to get involved. So I guess that's why our national demo on Saturday was so important because we have to keep showing that the ceasefire isn't happening and keep the pressure up on the government because our government is hiding behind this so-called ceasefire and would like nothing more than for all this to go away and the occupied territories bill to just disappear and everyone to get bored and think everything is fine now. So yeah, it's a mixed bag, I would say, on that. But again, this is, what you're seeing. It's not, you know, I don't have like statistics or whatever if people are looking for
Yep.
that.
We have fabulous volunteers. Like, I mean, I engage a lot with the Dublin branch and the number of people there who are just brilliant at doing various things and working very strongly together. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes,
lots of expressions of thanks for your presentations. A question: has it been considered to link up with a network of solidarity groups globally, or have global days of demonstration so that more people get involved? Certainly, we do that. I mean, yes, the campaign at the weekend was the Day of
International
Solidarity,
Day of
the
Solidarity.
National Day of solidarity with the Palestinian people. We have links with groups throughout Europe, and so yes, IPSC connects with lots of different groups and aligns where possible, on various campaigns.
I would like to answer a question there, or at least raise a question, which is, would Irish Lawyers for Palestine or other legal experts you have links to have advice or guidance on new messaging to rebut Helen McEntee's statement on the Occupied Territories Bill? It might be useful, but I suspect that they're kind of two different things. One is about media and communications. That's one skill set, and the other is about legality. So it's maybe to interpret between one and the other, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the ditch, for instance, with Roman Shortall, they're very strong on both.
Yeah, a positive comment there from Teresa. Speaking to an insurance broker recently who said the number one question asked in the past year has been querying which insurance companies are non-complicit as people want to avoid them. And that's very heartening. Absolutely. And we would always encourage people, when you're renewing your insurance, to ask that question. Absolutely valid. Thank you. Okay. Um, uh, I know you referred to this earlier, a point there on documenting the bias in RT over the last 2 years would be a great academic project. But Zoe, you said there's some work happening on that in
There's
University of Limerick.
two people in the School of Journalism in UL. There could be
Okay.
other people, I'm just aware of them because I'm in Limerick. And they did a
Yeah.
presentation on this a couple of months ago with I can't remember his name, but he works in, I think, the University of Edinburgh, and had done this great work with Greg Philo on reporting in British media. And they said they had done just a couple of bits then on Irish media, and said that they're in the process of doing this.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think we can get, like, we have to just keep pushing against the media, but not get too hung up on how annoying they are, because it would just explode your
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah. It can be very frustrating. Question asked as to when these webinars, when these solidarity sessions will be up online. The first one is up online, and we hope that the rest of them will be up online pretty soon. I don't have an exact date, but the person who is doing that is extremely busy, as you can imagine. But we will have them up there as quickly as possible. And anyone who registered for the for the sessions, I have your email addresses, so I will send an update when they're up there. Okay. Someone said they're intent to raise a complaint specifically on the Brendan O'Connor show, because there was a very one-sided panel with opinions on the Herzog Park renaming, which is obviously a very currently a very hot topic. Which was sidelined. Well, I think there's a Dublin City Council meeting on that this evening. I'm not sure what the outcome of that will be. We'll probably see it later.
Absolutely. So, like with something like that, you have two choices. Looking at the information that I showed you there on the RTA website, pursue it as a formal complaint. There are lots of scenarios in which you won't be able to sustain it as a formal complaint. Then the other one is pursue it as a not formal complaint, and saying, I am as a listener, as a viewer, am enraged by your bias in the following instance, and just take it like that. And yeah, make an impact there, you know.
Can I just realized I can see the questions, which is amazing to me. I just see one from Brona. As we're approaching Christmas and the January sales, can you outline key BDS consumer targets we should be focusing on? Yeah, so I had a couple up there in the slides, Brona, that we had done for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So Xbox, HP, Reebok, SodaStream, Siemens, Intel. Um, yeah, and if you look at again the priority targets, the BDS movement would be Disney as well. All of those, Dell, Intel, like so, pretty much most tech companies, um, Microsoft, Xbox. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a question there from Eileen. I thought there was an agreement with Musgraves, Musgraves Cash and Carry, I guess, distributors in 2018 to not sell Israeli goods. Would it be possible to have delegations from BDS, IPSC to formally approach the likes of Musgraves or Supermax, Papa John's, etc.? Look, I guess my input on this would be there are many campaigns that have happened. We do like anyone can start a campaign, anyone can collaborate with other groups on a campaign. IPSC, has regularly where possible, where we have the resources, leads out on these campaigns. So like I'm not sure specific. I doubt whether Musgraves agreed that they would not sell Israeli goods given their position in the market. But it's an ongoing campaign. And maybe somebody has more information on that, Zoe.
Yeah, just like we would regularly have done, like, campaigns around Duns. So we had a couple of years going, asking Duns to remove Israeli produce and handed in a massive petition to them and did meet them. We would have done the same around all the supermarkets. The Musgraves is just ringing a bell there. So it could have been that we were campaigning around Musgraves. Often they might just, like, they sometimes just remove the Israeli goods just to get rid of you, to stop people being around. But yeah, it's definitely, we have had campaigns around all the big retailers and them selling Israeli goods. And again, that's something that people should be doing individually as well in shops. Just complain and kick up a fuss, especially around the dates around Ramadan is a big one, and Israeli herbs, potatoes, any Israeli produce. But there are regular boycott actions in shops and supermarkets that different branches do around the country.
Okay.
I want to address a point, well, a question, an observation there. It's one of those more of a statement questions with regard to emailing TDs. So I have to say that emailing TDs is one of the most powerful ways in which a person can punch above their weight. So definitely choose a topic, the OTB, for instance, formulate what you're saying, send it to TDs, all the TDs, and it's a brilliant way to make an impact. I remember in 2018, like I was over the moon to hear them referring to the OTB on the or sorry, 2020. I was over the moon to hear them talking about the OTB on the 6-1 News for the first time ever. And that is just due to pressure. That's due to people emailing TDs and making their. So if there are parties that are already on side, let them know that you want them to stick to their guns. If there are parties that need to, like the parties that are holding out and are blocking the OTB or trying to delay it, get onto them as well. So definitely write to TDs. It's very, very powerful, and it's there don't have to be that many people doing it, but if one person can do it, if you can do it, it's brilliant.
And just on that, we regularly have email actions. Like we had one before the opposition motion on the OTB and the Dáil last week. Was it last week? Yeah. And hundreds of emails or thousands of emails will be sent. So, and anecdotally, I know from people who work in like TD and councillor offices, their inboxes have been flooded regularly over the last 2 years. So that's good because they do have to kind of pay attention when they're hearing that much from constituents.
Yeah.
But we keep an eye on our social media and our website because we regularly have these email actions. It's literally just a click action, 2 minutes to sign. It's written for you. You can customize it yourself, but if you don't have time or inclination, it's all there and it is effective.
Yeah. One recent campaign is regarding a Tesco worker being suspended in Newcastle, County Down, for refusing to handle Israeli goods, and there's been a number of protests on that, recent protests on that. So that's a very important campaign. I got an email before, just before the session, and asking me to reference Palestinian cola and Gaza cola, which hopefully everyone has seen and everyone has partaken in, and uh, uh, an effort, obviously, as to how we can how these can be more effectively distributed into outlets. And the question is from Dennis Murray and Carlow, and said that he's been in touch with the student union bodies in third level institutions who express an interest in furthering these products, Palestinian colas, into the universities, but have been hit with roadblocks because the contracts for the universities are taken up by BWG Green Hills and KSG Catering. So. And also there's a Monster Energy brand owned by Coca-Cola, which is a big source of revenue for whatever. So uh, we could spend a whole night discussing this one, but I would say if anyone has had any success on these campaigns, obviously there are, as I say, contracts in place with people with Coca-Cola owned entities or partners who are trying to obviously we don't want this to happen. So this could be a very effective campaign, and if anybody has uh, the energy and the wherewithal to collaborate with other groups, we certainly would, IPSC would be very supportive of that. Any comment on that,
Yeah,
Zoe?
just there, like if there are student and staff Palestine solidarity groups or BDS groups within those third level institutions, them having the procurement conversation with the authorities in the university is a good place for them to do some work. We had it in UL around procurement of like computers. Because they're often tied into contracts, but then what you're trying to work towards is that okay, when that contract finishes, that you source an alternative to this complicit company or company that's on the boycott list. And the BDS movement has a lot of resources around procurement and ethical procurement. And Salah Hijazi had given a great presentation from the BDS movement on that. So that would be something maybe for if there's a Students for Justice for Palestine or student BDS group or student and staff BDS group in those colleges.
Yeah. Look, I'm conscious we've gone 20 past 8, and there are lots and lots of other questions which we looks like we won't have time to get to. Um, uh, just a quick update on a couple of things with regard to the CBI, the central bank campaign. As I said, we had a session on that already, but that campaign is ongoing. There are motions being brought by the Labour and Labour Party and People Before Profit going through the Dáil. So there's an active Dáil campaign. There's also some legal cases that are still active. Obviously, the bonds are being sold in Europe by the Luxembourg equivalent of the CBI at the moment. But the central bank is still complicit. It's still the home country. And during the next year, the issue will come back to the central bank again. So as Joey said, there's a protest coming up on the 9th, and that protest is very much that campaign is very much active, right? So even though we didn't focus on it too much tonight because of the other number one session, okay. Um, Brian and Zoe, any concluding comments? Brian, you're on mute there, sorry.
Just a shout out to everyone who's out there doing their thing, not just joining us here this evening and having this conversation, but
Yeah.
like so many people, so many different towns, villages. I think particularly of the people on bridges freezing their fingers off on a Thursday evening or whatever it is, just a shout out to each and every person and organization. Now, one of the questions there was about like How do you measure success? The the IPSC is such a big organization that it's hard to say what we force the government to do and what other people force the government to do, or other organizations. It is for sure. I remember it myself, like February 2024, hearing Leo Varadkar confronted with the issue of genocide for the first time, and hearing the derision in his rejection of this. And now we have the government figures not only on the eve of an election, but consistently now falling over themselves to assure us that they see it as genocide, assuring us that they'll do this, that, and the other things. The Euromed trade agreements, something that they had never made any public statement on prior to this era, and they're falling over themselves to say, look, this is what we're doing in Europe. That is down to activists such as yourselves. So thanks a million for doing what you do, and let's keep it going.
And Zoe, the final word to you.
The final word. No, I'll obviously echo what Brian said, and thanks to everyone and well done for all the work. And like solidarity is important for us to sustain ourselves, and also for people in Palestine. And also now sanctions on Israel is mainstream opinion in Ireland. And I think that's a really big move, and something that we have to keep pushing with, and keep going. Like I said, we can't stop now. We would have always had this before, where we'd have big spikes in activity and energy around like mass violence against Palestinians, but then that would drop off when it's just the normal apartheid and routine violence. So we want to keep this momentum and this energy and these numbers of people involved, and keep working and keep pushing until freedom, justice, and equality for Palestine, and boycott Israel all day, every day. Free Palestine. That's me.
Exactly. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Matthew. The campaign goes on, and one of the speakers at the national demonstration said at the weekend, they are afraid of us, right? The people who are blocking justice for Palestine are afraid of public opinion, because we're on the right side of history, and our campaign will only get stronger. Thank you very much tonight, and free Palestine.